Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight is November 15th. Town of Fairfield's Water Pollution Control Authority meeting. Ron Drew, can you hear us loud and clear?
Yes, I can. I'm here.
All right, good to have you. All right, we've posted an agenda online. Are there any proposed changes, modifications? Seeing none, let's proceed with the first item in front of us, which is the approval of the October 18th regular meeting. Motion to approve. Motion from Chris. Second, comments, questions? Ron, did you have a comment or are you already voting to approve?
Approve.
All right. It's to be unanimous.
No.
Oh, no, Joe.
Abstain.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay,
here.
Joe was, yeah. You were with your family in Texas, right?
Right.
So that's Ron, Chris, Matt, Mark, and Joe as an abstain. Okay, new business to consider an act 845 Mill Hill Terrace, a 5-lot subdivision. Looking to tap into system and Ryan, are you going to present for this?
Yeah, so Brian Carey, Director of Environmental Services with Land Tech in Westport, Connecticut. So we're representing Maplewood LLC, Maplewood Senior Living on this project. The project's actually, the address is 845 Mill Hill Terrace, but the site's actually located off of Hamlet Hill Lane, actually on the other side of the property behind Mill Hill School. This was all one contiguous parcel. Maplewood Senior Living Facility, but they actually subdivided this part out of it. This is the last development parcel on the site. That's not encumbered into the public easement, conservation easement through the rest of the property. So the proposal before you, this is our first step, is a 5-lot subdivision. It is compliant with the town subdivision regulations. We have gone and in front of the Conservation Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission for the open space set aside. We actually got approval to do that in lieu of fee because it just didn't make sense, the small amount of open space that would have been deeded by the town. So we hired Land Tech for Maplewood. We hired ESI and worked with John Clancy to basically flow monitor this back in the late summer. Did have the flow monitoring in there for the minimum of 2 half-inch rainstorms threshold for the town. We calculated the flow, the anticipated flow using that state of Connecticut Department of regulations. And basically the anticipated flow from this subdivision once it's built out with 5-bedroom house. I believe 5-bedroom house is anticipated to be 3,000 gallons per day going into the system. We did our calculations. Data that was collected by ESI during the flow monitoring. We came up and determined that the pipe would be at 32% capacity after the addition of this additional flow, leaving approximately 68% of the pipe until full capacity. So based on that, the project's compliant with WPCA regulations. I don't know if this is going to be built by the applicant or if it's just going to be popped out. We still have to go in front of inland wetlands and for subdivision approval through planning and zoning. But that's it. It's pretty straightforward. The idea is much like the other project we did on Carriage Drive, where all of the houses would have individual grinder pumps that would pump up into a force main that would come up to an existing sanitary main off of on Hamlet Hill, and then we would run a standard lateral gravity line into the existing system. So it's pretty standard. There's capacity in the pipe, and it's just a traditional subdivision. Can answer any questions, that may come up.
Just general question on it, where's the sewer end at Hamlet Hill?
So the sewer comes back to here,
Oh, no, on the.
on Hamlet
Yeah,
Hill.
what's that Hamlet Hill?
Existing,
Okay.
connected to existing
And
manhole.
those homes are connected
Yeah,
to the
that's-
sewer
that's
also?
correct. Yep.
And they're all tied in the same way with the
Yes.
grinder pumps? They don't-
I don't know if it's, it must be, I didn't look at the as-built for this, but I believe it is. Not sure if these are all force mains up to this point or not.
And there's no issues tying it all into the same point with force mains?
No.
All the same general area?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Tell you this map, I haven't seen before. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah,
That is super helpful.
it's got to be updated every, I think, 10 years too.
You guys seen this? It's right Piers.
That's the map that has to go to the state for,
I saw that.
those are,
It's following the flows.
that's the main report that goes to the state every 10 years, I believe. That's required to show sewer avoidance, sewer expansion, and existing sewage throughout the town. So the town's required to provide that to the DEP every, I think, 10 years.
And I update them every year
Yeah,
on anything new.
that's,
The force main you're building here,
yes,
is that in the street?
this is in the street, yeah. So
So,
it's,
so that's in the street there.
that's in the street. We're gonna try to hug the gutter line as much as possible.
Now, the reason I'm asking is we're gonna have to get you're building it and we're taking responsibility for it.
That's correct.
So we would need to
Yep.
get a
So
legal
there's-
document that says,
There's precedence in that, actually.
no, I'm not, I'm just gonna add it into the motion so that it's documented.
So this is really just, it's the same thing that everyone just did on Carriage Drive. Which I've only heard good things about. So that's I can answer any questions.
You think about that. So this is, I'm just wondering, one thing we've learned is before we've said, why don't we often extend a line further? So what back is that?
So this thing has been named 10 different things since it's been built. At first it
It's right at the corner,
Yeah.
it's right at the hard corner there past the,
used to be like
Right on the-
Horse something, Horse Tavern
Yeah.
Road.
went through like two or three different.
Yeah.
The question I'm getting at is, does it make sense to extend that any further while we're in the process of creating that line? And
Isn't already extended to that point? The end of your green line,
This is so this would be the drop manhole. And then it would gravity drain to the existing.
okay, so it goes all the way.
So you wouldn't want to go into, you kind of need that drop manhole to have the grinder pumps discharge into and then basically fall into the traditional, I mean, I don't want to say it's trunk line, but it would be it would be gravity from here into the existing system.
so you're gonna be adding the drop manhole, or is that existing?
Here, no, that would be, this would
Okay.
be.
And then this
That's
existing
existing.
sewer to
That's
here.
correct. So we'd have to flesh that out a little bit further. Before we'd come in and pull permits, we would be required to show all that detail.
That was accepted with the Carriage Drive.
And it's a
That's how the
similar,
Carriage Drive did, they did a drop manhole with the same setup.
yeah, so they had all the grinder pumps going into one lateral off carriage and then that came down, because it goes through the new subdivision there, so they all came into one manhole. They extended the lateral, I think like maybe 50 feet through that new subdivision, similar setup.
Is there any maintenance on those drop manholes or any other items that you see?
The homeowners would be required to maintain their own grinder pump. That's really it. I mean, there's generally
These are
not.
the connections
Yeah.
to the force main and they're just manifolded in.
Yeah, that's correct. This one.
Touch of it.
Again, we would provide a better detail prior to pulling the permits. Here's the sewer profile.
The infiltration systems for this storm, right?
That's correct. And that's just for the road.
So these three are all, is there a manhole right there? Is that what this is? Or-
That's just where it's terminating. You wouldn't put a manhole there. Because if you put a manhole there, it'd have to have its own pump. It would actually be a pump station, so this is less liability. It would be, you'd have this terminate and then you'd have to tie that in at the end of the line.
What does this intersection look like though for the, I mean, I've never seen.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure either what exactly
This
that.
definitely works though, like
Definitely.
5 different manifolds into a force main. I mean, I agree with you from especially from our liability standpoint, it would be worse, but I would have normally expected all of these to maybe gravity drain to a wet well, and then there'd be one
then
pump instead of 5 separate.
The road.
We own the pump.
You can pump.
It'd be a bigger pump and we would be responsible for
And
it.
I don't think.
Or
Want that.
Negotiation, I don't think anyone wants that. And it's all individual.
I've just never seen
So
5 sewage ejector pumps.
just generally, I'm just for my clarification, who would own the laterals? So these are force mains into the lateral
The individual homeowners would own the lateral, would be the same as any
as
other.
as a standard, and then the town would own, let's say you're the force main up to here.
We could look at what you did on Carriage Drive, because I understand the hesitancy for the town to want to own the force main.
Correct.
I mean, I don't know if this is going to be a homeowners association or anything like that.
Is this gonna be a public road?
This would be a public road, yeah.
And this is a public road.
That is a public road.
But they're both public.
Yes.
Well, this one is, I don't know.
Yeah, because if this wasn't a public road, we wouldn't be able to get the
Yeah.
easement for that. So
Understood.
We need to take that.
I don't know if it's public. I'd be interested to see what you did on Carriage, because that's about the same setup.
Yeah, and I honestly, I mean, I know
To ownership.
you never hear this from an applicant, but I
Being recorded.
No, you don't need to vote on this tonight. I mean, we still have
There's no pumps on Carriage Drive though.
I was gonna say,
We just take control of the pipe that's under the
right, the
public.
grinders they feed directly to a
Right.
gravity line. This is a little different. That's, my only concern with this is just what that intersection looks like and then what kind of.
I can flush that out if
It's
that's.
the only part that I'd be concerned with, because I've never seen something like this where it's sewage ejectors into a common force main.
We generally don't do the full design until we know the flow. That'd be validated.
You know what it's more
I have
like?
no issues with the flow. I mean, the flow
The
gauge.
pipe we put in on Sasco Hill Road, they.
Yeah.
The grinders come into,
Into a
it's
force
more
main.
like that one,
That is-
Carriage Drive.
It's very similar.
Okay.
So all those houses haven't connected to that yet?
No.
But now when their septics were to fail, it would be required to by the health code, since they're fronted by sewer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. I'd be
No, but I'm
curious to
just,
see
I was just trying to.
details or something just to see what it looks like in terms of just the connection points themselves. Like if one of those, I mean, especially one of the ones upstream, were having issues, I would expect there to be maybe like a check valve or something so that the force main doesn't lose pressure. So the ones at the bottom are screwed.
There's there's general check valve, so it goes into the house.
Or at the tank, on the tank side, right on the other side of the tank. That's usually where the check is. The flow is the flow. It seems fine.
No issues with the flow.
Yeah, let me ask a question. I was looking at these pipes that show the 30% or so flow. The pipes look awful. Do you have any concern about them? Here's somebody kind of, it's like getting I'm not gonna say what it's like, but it's. They don't seem to have a great deal of integrity left to that.
No, they don't. Something we're gonna have to look at I and
I mean, I don't even know what this is. You know, this like hanging empty pipe in here?
No.
Oh. Leftover from something.
You just cut the ends of the pipes off and throw them down the sewer. You don't want to bury them.
It's still pipes and it's still that
pipe. What are you not gonna wait?
Hanging there.
I think it's a pipe.
So I guess the question for the commission is, do we want to approve it or do we want to come back with more information on the fourth main component?
It would need to be done today. My preference would be to see detail.
Yeah.
I have no issues with the loan itself. I would just want to make sure that there's no issues with the downstream ones.
Is
In recognizing that then we're responsible for or whatever.
Right. I mean, yeah, if this was like, if it did require some sort of, I don't know, like a backflow preventer or a check valve or something, at least for the upstream one. If we approved this and then it needed it, we would be on the hook for that.
Right.
who's gonna look at is an engineering gonna look at that though? Like more, our engineers just look at the final.
I don't know. I don't know what the process is.
I don't think they will unless we require it.
I'm fine, because I'm assuming, I would assume that they're gonna submit the final drawings. To get approved, it's gonna be a town road. So I would assume that we're gonna have our engineer look at it and just give them
You're probably right.
the updates. I'm fine approving the flow. Except it's just contingent upon our engineer's review and approval with the applicant.
Probably plumbing code dictates this whole thing.
Just to get it, I don't want to, because, yeah, you're an engineer, but if you weren't here, I would say, yeah, you're not gonna sign off on it. We're the ones that are owning it. Who's gonna, on our side, who's gonna look at it as an engineer?
That's what they did with Carriage Drive too. So if they come up with the design, our engineering department would look at it and give the blessing. or-
Yeah, I guess if our main concern is just does the system have capacity, then I'm perfectly fine approving it. The flow data shows that there's no concern.
Okay. Ron, any comments, questions? Okay.
He's muted.
How are you for a motion on this show?
Oh, no problem. To make a motion, allow the connection to the Fairfield sewer system of, there are 5, right, Brian?
Yes.
5 bedroom residences to be located at 845 Mill Hill Terrace. This approval is subject to the payment of an I&I fee of $26,555. And the force main will have to be approved by the town engineering staff. And once approved, ownership will be signed over to the Fairfield, to the town of Fairfield. Did I get it all?
You got a lot of it.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Chris. Comments, questions? All,
I got a comment. So what happens if a developer buys it? And they go in and say, I'm just gonna put a apartment here, I'm approved for 3,000 gallons per day.
No, he's approved for
No, I'm-
5 bedrooms.
Thank you.
That's what it says.
Okay, no, I'm
That's-
just,
If they change
that's it.
they have to come
motion.
back.
No, I just wanna make sure at least it's
5 bedrooms.
5
Five.
bedroom units.
5 bedroom.
He agrees.
That's what was presented.
and this approval is good for a period of 2 years.
Oh, And sorry, the rest of it is this approval will be for a 2-year period. If the applicant has not pulled the permit within 2 years, the applicant must reapply, and if approved, pay the then existing fee. I think that was you were Joe.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, looks to be unanimous. Ron, Chris, Tom, Matt.
Can I just bring up one additional thing? I'm bringing it up here. It has nothing to do with this applicant, but it's come to my attention as we looked. Our policy doesn't cover multiple bedroom units over 3. So our fee is for $5,311 for single residence. I think our policy needs to change, not now, but we need to address that at a future meeting that says we could have 4-bedroom. This is the first 5-bedroom I've ever seen since I've been on the commission, since 2017. But we're not covered for 5 bedrooms. The way our policy reads is a single family unit, a residence. Okay, our apartments go 3 up to 4.
Third,
Just up to
1, 2, and 3.
So we need to address the policy, my point.
Agree. Next item is, so we have 3 items coming up, all financial related. First one is here consider an act on an increase of the fog permit fee from $100 to $125. I think this, the income per year right now is roughly around $15,000. Is that right?
A little less. Basically, we budget about 13. We've got about, at least last year, we had 123 restaurants and we charged them $100 each. So 12.3. I don't think we've touched this fee for the last 4 or 5 years. I remember correctly. So I'm making a proposal which ties into the budget that John and I developed for FY '25 that says we raise the fee to $125. I don't think that's exorbitant. And when I look at the costing where we have to send somebody out to examine issues and problems,
Or to the inspector?
It's rational.
We lose money on it.
We lose money. It's rational at 125. I mean, I could justify a higher number, but this is a 25% increase.
And this came into play recently when we had a blockage up by the Chips shopping center that one of these blockages ended up costing us thousands. Okay, motion to approve.
How much are we in the red in terms of, I mean, I would think that the fog inspection program plus any fines for violations and stuff would hopefully cover the cost of administration and everything.
John handles it.
Increase it, right? Because
I heard you say we're losing money on it. I'm just curious. I mean, are we roughly even with the 25% increase?
Probably not, because the fog inspection program, because personnel, it hasn't been in effect for 5 years. So I think the more you go out there and get your feet on the ground, it's boots on the ground. And first of all of these people, all the restaurants that were mentioned would have to, fess up to the $125 fee, which a lot of them don't already because it hasn't been, and then fines and then it would be great for the plant, just for people, small establishments are probably pulling down the drain, which is going to take a toll on the plant, which we had over by Tungus Hill and Beaumont, right? So in the long run, I think having, somebody go out there would be, it would bring, revenue and.
Eventually, we're gonna have to put in a fog program. There's gonna have to be somebody going out there. There's gonna have to be a program in place, which I'm surprised there isn't already. So
Hasn't been.
I'm sure this fee is gonna be going up as the years go along.
Well, we assign penalties and stuff, don't we? We have,
You're out there to see it.
I guess, yeah.
Should catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could.
We have a code, but it's to it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so a motion to approve from Chris, second from Matt, all in favor? That looks to be unanimous. Okay, let's move on to the much larger numbers. To review, discuss, and approve the fiscal year 25 WPCF department budget. And thanks to Tom and Joe and John for pulling this together.
Okay,
I
so
like the model.
These two guys were invaluable. The help they gave me was monumental.
A lot of brain power, for
Yep.
sure.
So basically what we have is Department 130, which is the WPCF, John's department. And it has two components to it, a revenue component. And I assume everybody has got a lot of the backup, not out there, but I see a lot of the backup. Yes. It has two components. It's got a revenue component and then it has an expense component. And I really want to talk about the revenue component first because we're moving the revenue from 8.7 million this year projected to 10.2 million next year. And that is a function of, as everybody knows, we're building the fund. I heard Jared say it at the Board of Selectmen meeting today. The fund balance right now is 15 million. I think it's a little less than that after we do the encumbrance side of it, but it's in that range right now. So you could see with the 25% increase on sewer permits, and there's only really three big numbers that make up the revenue. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is noise. So the three big numbers are the user fees. And I'm happy to say that this year's user fees, the 7.668, when we sent out the sewer bills, it came out to $7.7 million. So our $5.25 per 100 CCF hit right on the number for this year. I'm proposing a 12.5% increase next year to $5.40 per CCF. That assumes same volume, raising it 12%, which will generate $8.6 million. Again, we're on a trajectory. I'm looking, and I'll talk about it in a minute. We're looking at the capital plan, which is up at 147 million. I'm looking at building the fund so we can cover the bonding for that number over 10 years. Okay, the other big number, which I've actually reduced, this is the first year we're seeing the fund balance interest. Once I heard the town was getting 4% on our money, they never used to give it to us. There's somebody in the room that remembers that, although the former CFO promised it to me. I have it in minutes from 2018. It wasn't enough to worry about. This year, I'm projecting it to be $480,000. And next year, I'm using 3%, figuring, I think inflation is going to come under control. This is being conservative. Inflation is going to come under control and interest rates are going to go down, probably starting mid-year next year. I think the Fed will write that down. The Fed will be lowering interest rates. The US can't sustain paying their bonds. They can't sustain paying their treasuries at the number.
Show up to a WPCA meeting and the things you find out.
Yeah. So anyway, when I take those three numbers, odd permits, I've got up a little bit. I plugged in 750. If everybody read the all those guys. Who was Dennis's company? Wright Pierce. If everybody read the Wright Pierce report, he's got $3 million worth of work over the next 3 or 4 years. So I figured we better come up to about 750,000 in I&I. So maybe in January, February, I'll be back with an increased recommendation for I&I. But between I&I, user fees, and the fund interest balance, everything else being noise, I want to project 10,227,000. And that number's magical when I show you the expense side.
On the heels of the I&I thing, Dennis said he will be at the December meeting to give a final report to the I&I, give a cost projection on most critical to least critical.
Just so everybody knows, you'll see a balancing number. When I put 750 in revenue, you'll see 750 in I&I expense. We've always balanced it. Okay, if we see our number is going to be higher, we could do a little more work. If we see our numbers are lower, we'll pull back on some work. But this gives us 4 years to do phase 5, the $3 million projection, if we stay at the 750. I want to jump over, unless somebody has any questions on the revenue side, that's the easier side. I want to jump over to the expense side. We've gone through the expense side, and the first number you see, that 1,892 in account 59,500 is something that Jared and Frank, our budget director, plugged. They didn't like us running.
I think they're both with us tonight, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I see Frank at least. Jared with, oh, Jared. So that 1892 is a plug number. That is the number that is the delta between the revenue and the expense. The expense being less than the revenue, that puts them both in balance, makes this sort of look like a P&L. And that's the number that theoretically goes to our fund, to increase our fund. Okay? So based on the 10,000,002 in revenue, we would be putting up almost $1.9 million increase into our fund. We've talked about, first big line is salaries. And although we haven't seen the report from our consultants yet as to what they're recommending, I am going to recommend that we take and put, based on talking with John and Tom, 5 new headcount into the department. That would be 4 headcount, and John could talk about them. 4 headcount as, yeah, I forgot their titles now. One of the,
Operations,
right,
2 in maintenance, and 1
part-time laborer,
unskilled. Yeah.
unskilled laborer, 4 in there, and 1, and this is now going to be contingent on, I guess, the new administration, and 1 director level, someone that John would report to, who would be responsible to be our advocate, who would be responsible for managing the projects. Okay, that adds up to salaries to 400,000, and I threw in 100,000 for benefits. So the number you see on the bottom of this document, 9760, you have to add 500,000 to it.
Well, that's in the contingency.
Oh, you did put it in?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
It's under, I think it's
So those 4 positions, a total of 500?
400,000 for salaries. They're not all from day one,
58020.
so they're phased in.
Gotcha.
Okay,
58020 is the account.
okay.
Second to
So,
last.
so then the budget number, the plug number will go a little higher. To get it up to the 10.2, it will go up the delta between 10,227 and 9,760. If John got it in, I didn't see it in. If John's got it in, that number will go a little bit higher. Everything else is pretty consistent. Our chemicals are up. I mean, if you go through all the detail, it's all explained there in the document. Fuel, chemicals, it's all up slightly, but there's nothing that really sticks out.
Is this a new software system?
No, Munis has been around since.
It's been around forever.
I've never seen this version. It's great.
That's the detail of it. What you see,
Yes.
you see, it's in the budget side. I know what you see.
How are we on getting the electric costs down?
We didn't budget it down.
Well, right now, we're getting some from the solar field and the fuel cell, but know that because the fuel cell is on site and Doosan or Hyaxium, whoever runs it, we agreed to buy the power that thing makes at their rate. Is it a savings over UI? Maybe a little bit.
Only a little.
But the solar field should help as long as it stays sunny and as is.
Not right.
So, I mean, I want everybody to go through the budget, but this would be the budget that we would start presenting to, starting with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and the RTM eventually. I anticipate there'll be questions and adjustments, but this is the general direction.
And this budget will be, as long approved tonight, will go to Frank before Friday.
I could I gotta tell you, I have great comfort that the three of you have done this work.
On the understudy here, but I do have a quick question. The part-time line, we were taking that out or?
Yes, it's out. It's out. Well, that's our plan.
Okay.
Yeah, we're putting new headcount in. We're taking out some of the overtime and the part-time.
Part-time and summer help, because summer help.
Summer help also is
Summer
out.
help is just a babysitting job that you just can't.
Those are small numbers, just rounding. It's directionally just rounding it.
I think it looks good.
So I mean, I can go into detail every line, but I don't think we want to do that here. I mean, we're doing it directionally.
That's outstanding.
And you got Frank and Jared. I don't know if
Frank and Jared, do you have any comments, questions?
No, just for the process, this budget will come to me. It lives in Munis, as it is. There are some numbers. Well, I would look at the salaries, look to make sure that they match to the contracts, to the labor contracts. And then they would just go to the first selectman, and then the first selectman, I believe can make changes, and then it would just go through the process along with the other budgets. That's how it's been done in the past.
and many of the numbers in here, Frank, are your numbers. You do them, the benefits, the retirement, all those numbers are your numbers. They'll be adjusted. to
Yeah,
your-
so the numbers, I just started doing kind of all the staffing calculations. I try to wait as long as I'm possible, just because, FY25, it feels close, but it really is far away. So, those will probably change a little bit by probably 2 3/4%, because that's where most of the contracts settled at. Over time, a little bit more, but I wouldn't expect them to really materially change. I think the 5 people, depending on what decisions are made with that, I think if those were to go or not go, that would materially change the budget, but I don't think the salary increases will.
Right. I agree.
And let me ask a question. In my failure to take municipal accounting back in college, the redemption, the amortization of the bonds, that actually shows up in the annual budget. So it's in this budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this account on the second to last page,
Page 6, I think.
redemption, interest expense, these two numbers,
So
and we get those from Frank or Jared also.
the proposed budget increases some more I&I money, increases our cash balance for more capital projects, but at the same time takes out about $400,000 in amortization off of one of the bonds on the eastern.
Eastern Turnpike, 428, and interest on that is 238,000.
Yeah, those numbers,
Get those
those
from Frank.
numbers, those numbers will probably change a little bit too, just to update with the debt schedules. The way I have the process now is I sent out a letter to all the departments heads. They have the 17th to kind of enter all their numbers. And then I work on the salary and enter all that information. But what happens is as it is right now, I would have track of that. And then, any of the numbers that I change is based on new information that I'm getting, based on retirement, other post-employment benefits. Those would be in kind of the next version. So you would be able to see the change from the version you're looking at today to the new version as the board as the first selectman proposes it.
Gotcha. Frank and Jared, what would you imagine our borrowing cost to be on debt right now versus, I think that Eastern Turnpike pump station was probably at like 2.5%.
Yeah, I don't want to speak off the top of my head because I haven't started looking into doing the budgets for that, but I'll just put a note and I can tell you what I believe it's going to be at.
Okay. What do you think it's for?
That's the number if you ask me where I would think.
It's going down next year, right?
Yeah, middle
Yeah,
of
middle of
next
next
year.
As long as the town maintains its AAA.
AAA matters. Okay.
My broker's Ian Hutton.
So,
Okay, so we have a an approval component to this. Are there any more comments, questions, or?
Question on the, so for the I and I stuff, I understand we need to balance.
Right.
How are we coming up though with the increase? We're gonna increase the I and I rate? Or,
Yeah. We're going to increase, my intention is to increase the INI rate 15%.
okay,
You know, we can discuss it, but the target, it would be 15%. Yes.
It's got to be 15% on the category that's being hit. We're not doing, to the prior point, we're not doing a lot of three families. We're doing a lot of one
Right.
families.
And apartments and
it's just
condos.
the overall revenue that needs to increase. So I mean, the other way, even if we did no increase but got more people
Right.
paying the I and I fee, then I mean, it's really just, it's a total revenue. But so I guess related question would be if we do get less,
Then there's another.
less than we're
there's
projecting,
Another budget line in here.
I mean, we can do less I and I
Correct,
rehab work? or
correct. But
Can
we,
we
right.
take it from somewhere else?
Well, we theoretically, if it becomes an emergency, always take it out of our fund. I
Okay,
mean, we always have that to back up on if we've got a broken pipe or something. But for the program itself, revenue 750, there's the expense line of 750. If we start seeing that the revenue's 500, we start cutting back on the backside of the program because we never commit to the full amount. The good news is we've got a few more buildings going up. Thank you, Mark, over at the Metro. We've got, we still don't have the temple, the Masonic Temple. We still potentially have 15 Umpqua. You know, we have a number of things out there that are still
So we
pending.
need about 200 here.
Yeah, the 750 is not a push number. It's- And I'm working the other way. I'm expecting more than 750
understood.
and hopefully.
I'm more
we'll be
just
able to
thinking
do
at
more.
it from the 300, the 3 million that we need to
Yeah.
cover in high priority
Yeah.
repairs.
Right. That's
How
why
many
I
of those
broke,
does
that's
it?
why I broke it into 4 years. I mean, we'll be happy if we can get a quarter of it done.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay. There a motion to approve? Motion from Matt, second from Chris, all in favor? Aye. Aye, great work, guys.
Nice job, guys. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to the capital plan. 10-year capital.
Okay, and what you've got in your backup is an updated version, updated as of 11/12/2023. Prior year estimate was 157 million. We've increased a few of the items like the East Trunk Phase 1 and 2. The Wayne pipe went up quite a bit. And Thorpe, my personal favorite. We're
Well,
still,
on that point, do we really, I mean, it's just discussing that, the Wayne, like, do we really, I mean, it's gonna be a multiple of that based on what we know right now.
this is coming from the engineering department, which has been working with Jared and I'm assuming also Frank as far as the capital committee. I pick up their numbers so that we're in sync.
Okay.
So this is their latest estimate. You can see where their estimate was 688. Now you see it's 2 million.
Yeah. It'll probably be
No work has been done.
3 times that.
Yeah, no work has been done. This is a point in time until we get an engineer looking at it. I assume we don't no longer have Cinto. Cinto had committed one to do it originally and then backed off on that and said 150,000. And that's the last one, but nothing's going on the properties.
We don't know the degree of sag in that pipe.
Exactly. All we know is there's a dip in the pipe.
Sonar could do that.
Company.
Yeah. What about just, conceptually a line for just like stuff happens? Bless you. We learned from, was it Beaumont? Was that over on Beaumont? That, and we saw these pictures of these pipes that there's chances are there's a whole bunch of pipes out there that are on the verge of failing. And we've learned quite a bit over the last couple of years of what it costs to replace a pipe, what it costs to fix it over a weekend and what it costs to replace it in due course. Should we be thinking about some line item? I mean, the difficult thing is we can't identify the exact spot. But it seems like within a day or two of every WPCA meeting, something goes wrong.
Well, I will answer that in two answers. One is, we do have the I&I fund,
Yeah.
which we can, if we have 750,000 identified and we're going to spend it, it's not all done at once. We could rearrange that money, and I think we did that with Southport this past year. Get some of the I&I money and rearrange it to deteriorating pipes in Southport. And number two, we always have our fund. I mean, that is our backup. If it's an emergency, or if we identify something that's really a problem, we will have to vote to take it out of the fund. I mean, I could put a line in there, $1 million, but it doesn't do anything.
Well,
It's there.
does it do anything in terms of streamlining the process for when we need access to those funds?
No.
So it's still go through all the departments.
If we're spending $1 million, we've got to go through all the town bodies.
Okay.
It's not that it's
Do we
budgeted.
have good estimate numbers for, I mean, anecdotally, I think it's somewhere around 7x emergency repair versus planned, and I think I've seen presentations where people actually showed those costs, but I mean, they're all just back of the napkin type of things. So I was curious if we had anything.
A scary number.
I don't. I'll answer it for me.
Because I mean, I don't know how much we're doing in terms of reactive pipe fixes, but if we're doing a lot, then one or two of them could potentially justify flushing an inspection program where the most progressive utilities plan on doing inspecting their entire system once every 5 years. More standard is once every 10.
More people.
Well, that was the intent of adding staff. I mean, if we really want to open the kimono, we talked about having our own staff to go fix the pipes. We can't get people to do trunk lines.
Right.
If we've got small projects, and the Southport project, for example, can we create a little group and outfit them and pay for them?
So that's probably a conversation.
Future.
Most utilities don't do their own
Right.
pipe repairs,
Right.
but a lot do their own inspections. So I mean, you get a camera, a flush truck, you go out and once
And
every.
that's what we talked about as far as new.
We just need more people.
Understood, yeah.
Well,
I mean, that-
those cameras are just getting the above the water line.
We've got.
Well, ideally you flush. I mean, if you send a jet vac through, clean out the pipe, and then,
If you've got the jet here and you start the camera here, you can pull back and pull the water,
Actually
see
see.
the whole pipe. Which we're talking about getting another lens for our camera in the Capitol.
We have it in 59,500. Yeah, we have it in here. Having a new.
That can tilt.
But is that gonna work on a 30-inch pipe?
No, that's something we have budgeted in our operating budget to have lines bigger than 18 inch
Bigger than 18. Okay.
TV'd by an outside company.
It's in our capital, it's in our budget in capital in 57,000, right there. That one is what he's talking about. So we've got it in the budget.
Lens
A new lens for the camera.
That goes up to 18 inch. That'll go up to 18 inch.
That's a good point.
We'd be doing that. You can't. You can do it.
lights don't bright enough.
You need a bigger camera than we.
Exactly.
Add it to the list.
I mean, you can get different wheels for the cameras, but you use a small camera with big wheels and the light's not bright enough to see it.
And it's only focused on,
Sonar.
But yeah, I mean, if we're actually inspecting the pipes, then we would see the problems before they become bigger.
I think that's a conversation with the new administration and the role of DPW in conjunction with WPCA on how the two groups work together. and whether that responsibility for the pipes is a DPW thing or if it's a WPCA thing, but that's, I would say, one of the most important questions. Answer with the new administration.
But in terms of outsourced inspection, my current, and I'm all for doing inspection, but we have 3 million of identified repairs already. That's my higher priority, is actually addressing the known issues versus continuing to look for new ones. Ideally, we're doing both, but if I'm weighting one over the other, it's the 3 million that we already found.
Which would help us at the plant
In that
down the road, take out more water, let's treat.
That would have.
It sounded like they did the high level, what
The high
Dennis
level
said
they
in
did.
terms of
Yeah, high level, they definitely did.
20 something catchments and picking the fixed ones. The philosophy made sense to me.
Okay, any questions on capital? I mean, we've increased, just so you notice, we pushed back the pumps at both Fairfield Beach and Pine Creek, and the money, as you can see, went up slightly in both. Those will be the next projects, capital projects coming behind the Frontline Phase 1 and 2, which are scheduled for March.
Okay.
Get somebody to bid on it.
Yeah, well, that's coming up. Good point. Okay, so that's a review and let's consider that reviewed. Okay, so moving on to old business, we have a Metro Center update.
Well, I heard that we're going under construction in March, so this is all.
I'm hearing that too. Do we know that?
We don't.
Do we have any?
It's,
Engineering is working with D&B engineers to do borings and get everything together. They're hoping to bid it by January, I think. So, I mean, if they get the bid out in January, we could technically get going in March, technically. Hopefully, positively.
Let's all commit to find somebody to bid. One from each of you.
Putting the two projects together, they think is gonna help, because you've got the big component of the phase 2 part of it. And you figure you get a bigger, more contractors that wanna do that, then they can sub out the other stuff, and they're still making hay over here and doing what they normally do. So
That's
that's,
still doing unit pricing, right?
Yep.
That's
The key,
I
I
think
think,
that's
to get it bid.
Commissioner Steiner.
You know, last meeting we talked about, I think Bill Hurley was gonna check with the town attorney on Cardinal's plans to see if it's okay to be having one engineer jump on their plans without stamping them and what the responsibility is. Did we ever hear back from that?
there has been talk between the town and D&B about if they're going to go with the Cardinal plan, they have to approve it. I don't know if the final yes or no has been done yet.
Okay, thank you.
I will get that answer for you next meeting.
That answers so they feel like they have to approve it. So they have to stamp it.
Mark, what's new on your side?
even if unofficial.
Metro Center.
well, we have two grants for this. One is the $750,000 Urban Act grant, which dates back many years, and we've had multiple extensions. We have it's for construction only. It's valid through 12/31 next year, 24. So more than likely, we'll have to ask for an additional extension at some point, but I'd rather do that for construction. It's getting a little tiresome after a while.
Sure.
The second one is the larger grant, the Connecticut Challenge Grant, $3 million. DECD has been pushing for us to close that grant by the end of this month. In order to receive the grant, we had to make a case that it meets one of the state's objectives, which is obviously to enable development, to either provide for job creation or new housing opportunities and the like. So as part of our explanation, the reason why we got the grant is we demonstrated that we had a couple projects that were in the pipeline, so to speak, that would definitely be helped by having, the pipe approved. So ECD, in order to close the grant, wanted $1 million personal guarantee from the developer. which the developer is willing to provide is accurate, which is the developer of Fairfield. And he's willing to do that, but of course, he would like to make sure that he's presently before you and has some understanding that there would be capacity in the pipe to accommodate his development once the improvements are made. So, working both with Land Tech is working with both Accurate Post Road Residential on this project. They just completed flow monitoring, so hopefully we'll be able to present some data to you, a capacity analysis for you to consider either later this month, next month, as soon as we can. And at this point, I've explored other options with DEC based on, again, change in administration. I've got a new town attorney to ask to provide for a opinion of council to the letter, to the grant. And so we can bring, indicated DEC that I need to bring that group, whoever the town attorney may be, up to speed and in a position to close. And I'm not sure that will happen by the end of this month. So, make a long story short, I think we're in decent shape, but obviously DEC is putting a lot of pressure on us to close. They threatened at one point that, hey, if you're not able to close, we're going to have to pull the money back and deploy it elsewhere. And I said, no, we really need the money. So that's where we are. So hopefully we'll have more information to present to you to these developments that are in the Fairfield metro area. Either later this month or
We're
next.
working on the reports right now.
So it could be next week,
The
following.
say 3 weeks, and then I'll give it to you in 2, and then. Me telling you 2 weeks.
Trying to push is, trying to trying to work as quickly as we can. I'm keeping DECD in the loop. Obviously, I understand how important the money is. We've worked very hard to get the money and make sure that it's still there when we actually needed to do this work. So.
So one question, because it's a little bit awkward, because we're representing both
Two parties.
two parties who may or may not have competing interests based on the amount of capacity in the pipe, based on our flow monitoring.
Where's the monitoring being done?
It was already completed.
Where was it?
So it was on the property and then down on Riverside Drive. So we have a fairly good stretch of, we had done flow monitoring back in May, and there was some skewed data that couldn't be explained. So we hired another company, Flow Assessment. They came in and just finished the monitoring. We just got it Monday.
So at the Metro Center.
And then down on Riverside Drive, so south of the existing, where the siphon would be replaced.
And approximately how many units?
So it's confusing. So one of them is 200.
Post Road is 245, and Fairfield Metro is approved for 357 units. They're coming in with some revisions to their site plan. They may propose as many as 650
Yeah,
units.
643 units per house.
I'll find Diana.
So one of the things that's creating, that we need to get from them is the residential units are pretty straightforward. It's the concourse building that they're still kind of trying to nail down. Because it includes a hotel, office space, restaurant, so there's kind of, that makes
It's mixed use.
it's a mixed use, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to
So they had-
calculate the anticipated flow.
Yeah, Accurate had presented a concept plan, non-binding before TP&Z for the concourse building, which include 2 floors of office as well as 118 key hotel and some retail space on the first floor. TPZ's non-binding feedback was, looks like, maybe 10 pounds in a 5-pound sack. Maybe you should lose the 2 floors of office and reposition them elsewhere on the site. Because what it turned out to be was a 125-foot building, tall building, which is above what we currently allow, and even in that zone.
Yes.
So I think that was the feedback they provided. Again, it's not binding on the applicant. Applicants can still come in with the proposal as presented. And we've had some changes in, well, but I think that's what Brian is trying to nail down as to whether or not, I think the 118 key, the other feedback was 118 key hotel, maybe based on some of the feedback, maybe there's more keys there than 118. There's certainly been strong interest from our two universities and other businesses in the area to increase the size and capacity of the hotel component. So maybe that comes at the expense of the office. So I think that's what Brian's trying to nail down, is exactly what that.
There, yeah, so I'm trying to pin them down. I think we come in with, very conservative numbers for that building. For the flow assessment as best we can, but the way the health code works and the flow monitoring, I mean, you're really supposed to account for not only the square footage, but for restaurants per seat. I have no idea what those total numbers, and if they're just building a space and they're not what does that look like in the future? I don't think anyone will be able to give you that level of data.
Maybe that Sacred Heart Diner might have some data.
So,
That's
yeah,
the last new restaurant in town.
so I think we're gonna have to estimate that a bit. But I think for simplicity, two separate reports, I'm hoping they'll be done for the October or for the December meeting. We'll know pretty quickly if there's an issue with capacity. The way we're gonna do it is that we'll present to the board two basically capacity studies, one showing the existing conditions with the 33-inch pipe and what the capacity will be after the 33-inch pipe is replaced to a 36-inch pipe. Your approvals are only good for 2 years. I'm anticipating that the East Trunk sewer line will be all of that for construction. I mean, it's gonna take a while to build that. I think, they need some types of guarantees to move forward with the project, to know that once the capacity is available, that they'll be able to tie into it at that time.
I know the town attorney has discussed with counsel for the applicant about, just exactly that in terms of how that would move forward without, putting either party, either the town or the applicant, understanding what the issues are, but not putting either party at risk. So, but, this is obviously, it's going to take some time to improve the East Trunk sewer, as Brian indicated, but also hopefully we start this spring, but also it'll take some time for the project.
Yeah, I mean, I think BlackRock, 81 BlackRock, I mean,
They're going to build
their performance is going to be quick. It's only phase.
What's 81 Blackrock?
That's the Post Road Residential, which is the one next to
245.
Yeah.
Between Illicit Brewing at 111 Blackrock Turnpike, where Planet Fitness used to be, in the Fairfield Metro Center parking lot.
So I
5 acres.
think once they get their approvals, they'll be building accurate. It's gonna be fixed. So obviously a much larger project.
Gotcha.
Now.
So accurate.
They're required conditions of their formal approval to proceed with the concourse.
Yeah, they're going to be building the concourse.
So stay tuned, but in terms of the grant, I think we're okay for now. Keep you, obviously, we'd like to get the grant closed as soon as possible. So if we can do something earlier than December, and we need to, then we'll let you know. If we can't, because we don't have the reports ready, we're able to get additional time, CD. December, which we'll consider.
For East Trunk, once it's, soon after it starts, they'll need to bypass flow through the wetlands for the duration of construction until, so I mean, at that point, I don't know if D&B, I don't know what size bypass system they're installing, but I mean, if they're accommodating the 33-inch, they should be able to accommodate the 36-inch flow, the theoretical flow. So we should be able to accommodate the excess flow during construction, not after.
Those conversations with the property owner need to be happening now too, as far as lay down area easements, temporary easements. I mean, just my advice to the town,
that's the other-
they're hard to negotiate.
That's the other thing we have talked to them about, which is exactly that.
But at least that works in our favor, is that the bypass system should be able to accommodate the proposed flow as opposed to existing.
Should just dead end that road. Dead end, if you just basically shut down the road at the end there. It's basically dead end, you'd have that whole area for a lay down.
I mean, Kennard,
Yeah.
well, I guess we'll have to talk to a few other businesses over there.
Yeah.
Find something cement,
Exactly. You know, what happens
A lot of moving parts.
at a meeting?
Do we have a sense of, is the peak flow at like 60% or is it closer to 80? Closer to 60? Closer to 80?
Those are more.
higher.
And
This
is,
is an area that we've had a lot of.
is there a way to stage the, so that's peak flow, but
Sure. I don't know if a 40 going into a 36 is a 36.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're gonna have to do phase zero, whatever it is. Are we being short-sighted with 36?
So, again, earlier on, you guys had looked at a capacity analysis was performed as part of the initial Fairfield Metro Center proposal when you approved the 357. And that was, partly discussion about changing, removing the bottleneck that we have there currently and upsizing the pipe. And based on that analysis, there would seem more than that capacity to accommodate.
Back then it seemed to be, but listening now,
Look at what the current flow is, project forward.
So just generally hearing what it is there any way you could project I into that flow?
I'm sure they're gonna have to make an allowance for it somehow.
Because there's gotta be the whole reason why we're replacing it too, is that there's a huge I. So it's like, yeah, maybe if it's at,
just north of.
maybe it's 85%, but you got 15% I. What, you think we gotta look at that too, because once you change the pipe to a 36, you're gonna remove the I too. And how are we gonna?
For that portion of the pipe, but most of the I and I is getting in north of the.
coming from Bristol River more than it's coming.
It's probably
coming from Ash Creek too,
I thought it was more, a lot of it was coming from Ash Creek, it's right there.
but upstream, it's coming from Bristol River.
I mean, if you wanted to fast track this, you'd probably think about lining the northern pipe first and then do the replacement of the Metro Center pipe. But that's not gonna happen.
That'll be another grant application maybe.
This is as complicated as they come.
Yes.
I mean, it reminds me a bit of the Sacred Heart Pump Station and the race to get that done so that those dorms could come online. But this is multiples of the complexity. Okay, so we previewed this tonight because there may be a special meeting this month and I think the in-person discourse is always a bit more valuable.
When you say this month, you're talking November, though?
November of this month.
I wasn't sure when you were saying this month.
Certainly having conversation with DC to beg for additional time, and I think we have adequate reason for it. Number one, we need to have the report on which you can make an informed decision. But number two, we've had a change in administration that obviously needs to come up to speed in order to execute the grant. So what's pushing this is their desire to close the grant by the end of the month. And I'm saying, well, that may not be possible. So
Well, the other issue, and it's just that, the WPCA is gonna have to make a decision predicated on the project that the town is doing. Yeah. So if we do the analysis and it's not working at a 33 inch, we're gonna come in and say, well, since this is a phased project and they're all asking for capacity and it's not there until the town completes that project, are you granting an approval to enter that project?
That's the conversation.
I don't think it's a problem because you guys ultimately have, you know, you have projects not done, this project's not working. That's what the town is doing.
It does, yeah.
But
Like the town would say, well, we get a release if you come online and we're not ready for you. You know, when that,
You cannot,
He needs the approval.
you cannot have the approval, you cannot tie in until the pipe has been improved and ready to accept that flow.
yeah,
And I think the applicant understands that, at least one of the
yeah,
applicants.
same with Sacred Heart. They're building dorms and, you know, that pump station didn't have
I
any
don't-
capacity.
That has been explained.
But you got a 2 year, probably 2 years from now, you move things along, it would be finished. Just generally speaking, by the time you get your plans and then a
It's
year
about concurrent
project.
with construction for a new residential or concourse.
So,
That was my point though, about, I mean, as long as we start construction before they're done, we should be able to accommodate the flow. My main concern is, are we actually gonna start construction? Can we find a contractor?
Talking about it for 8 years, so.
I guess now we gotta do it, or
But Brian, to your point, I mean, I would,
be empty for a while.
if you came showing the calculations for 33 and 36, I mean, as long as it's under on 36.
if it works in 33, I'm not gonna.
It works on 30, of course, no need. Doesn't work on 30.
Going on 36.
As long as we know that the future condition can handle it. Add some levels of,
So there's two things. There's the project for replacing or enlarging the 33 to the 36, but there's also got to be a commitment made to removing I&I out of the system, out of that system. Which, you know, based on all the flow monitoring data we've done out there, it's been studied a million times. You know, 50% of the capacity of that pipe is being taken up by I&I. So, you know, that's a lot of money the town is spending to treat groundwater, surface water, or whatever else. So, you know, that just helps dramatically, not just for the collector system, but also the treatment plant.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, the Save the Sound comes in. You know, they've kind of backed off, but they can come in here and start making things really uncomfortable by, you know, going to the state and getting violations and forcing the town to really address the I&I issues. So, I
Is the pipe itself compromised? Is it?
mean, if you go up behind in Rooster River, I mean, there's just sections that just daylight.
It's a mason, so I guess the answer is yes.
And it was bid in 2017. It came in way too high. It's just been sitting ever since.
All right.
Right.
Thanks for coming.
That part of it is manageable.
It's gotta,
It's gotta be done.
it's gotta be done. That's the.
It's a, you know, one of these buildings is about value of the GE headquarters that came off the master list. So this is not inconsequential for the town and for our customers and
Town's got a lot of investment in that site too. I'm sure it wants to recoup.
it's storied site for sure.
Know it all too well.
Yeah. Mark, thanks for staying on top of this. Appreciate it. Okay. So more to come on that potentially soon. Yeah, update on current projects. Station design update. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Pump station design, phase 1, Fairfield Beach, Center Street, Pine Creek. Pine Bonds conceptual. Conceptual design has been submitted to the state. The state is now going to review it. And if they give it a stamp of approval, then we could possibly recoup the funds. You're not gonna hear back from them until at least, I'm saying January 1st. Phase 2, which is Willow Street. Yep. Toll House, Eastfield, and one more that's escaping, Mill River. That phase 2 part was approved, the contract was approved today at the Board of Selectmen meeting, so Ty and Bond will be starting that, which is assessing the existing structures, doing field surveys, easements, checking for hazardous material and hydraulic analysis. So that'll be data that can be used down the road when we get to those designs, whenever that may be.
Joe, did you have anything to add from the Fairfield Beach Association?
I'll be going to the Fairfield Beach Association meeting tomorrow night.
How timely.
I'm definitely presenting the Fairfield Beach Pump, and they've told me that Pine Creek Association is going to be there also. So I'll be talking about the Pine Creek Pump also. The other thing I got a heads up on is they may also be bringing up the odor.
What order now? Show them the budget.
What all we have right now is one complaint from September 1 that came to us. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring up. I'm not expecting anything. The one thing I did have a question for you, John, is digest the other storage tank.
Yes,
Digester too.
yes.
It's in your budget this year. Do you
Yes.
intend to, or is we still evaluating?
Oh, no, there's the story that is the next update.
Is the story?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, yes.
The perfect segue into the digester update.
First off, the primary digester is absolutely fine, running very well, doing what it's supposed to do, no issues. Secondary digester, which is basically just a holding tank, but it's also a storage for gas, which means it has a floating cover. We've just, in the past month or so, decided to start getting the cover up to where it's supposed to be. Well, it's cockeyed. It doesn't go up evenly.
Yeah.
And it was off about 18 inches. So we kind of got the plans out and we did some investigation and we called Dennis and John Bracchio from Wright Pierce and Jake, who was here for the other digester, and we kind of put our heads together. Dennis was here today and he says we're going to need to do an inspection of the inside of that tank. So in the spring, we will probably get Wright Pierce to give us a plan of action, but we're probably gonna get the bid documents together for cleaning that digester going mid-winter, so we're ready to go as soon as the weather breaks to clean that out. While we clean that out, we're going to have to not only feed the primary digester, but take what normally goes to the secondary digester and process that through the normal means of the belt filter press and the compost. Does not mean odor issue. It just means logistics as to how we store or how we handle feeding one tank and taking out at the same time. So that being said, the money's there for the cleaning aspect. Now, the cover is ginormous, 60 feet across. There's concrete weights that hang off the bottom so that when you put the gas in there, it keeps it from obviously popping out. One of the thoughts is that one of those concrete blocks fell off. So now that's why the cover, we don't know. So once we clean it, we're gonna have to get in there and see what exactly is wrong and then repair it.
Just go in and take a look.
Now,
Got the hazmat suit, I'll have to go in.
I did invite you guys to go into the other.
I know you did.
It was down.
I know you did.
It's interesting. You missed out on something. So being said,
Pictures are good.
you now have an opportunity for this one. It's exciting, but the fix could be very easy. Or as we tend to know here in Fairfield, it's expensive.
It won't clean in the winter?
You have to set up an outside temporary press, so you've got water freezing and stuff like that. Right now, there's no issue running the way we are. We've got plenty of gas to mix, to heat the digester and everything else. So that's not an issue. So it's just, we're going to prepare and be ready. So when the weather breaks, we go. Yes, sir.
They're just generally speaking, knowing what we know about smells and a lot of things happening. I think first we were gonna do a study. We were held that till April of next year as of last meeting for the divert or the odor study. So we probably should wait on that since we don't know what it is, but should we be on top of this? And maybe this new administration, we could have help in saying, hey, listen, by the way, with just general maintenance and upgrades, we're gonna be doing this to to the facility. And there may be just some minor inconveniences with some smells and some just different things, just as an update, so we can keep everyone informed, so we're not backtracking on things, because we don't know, there may or may not be.
That was much, not nearly as big a deal for two reasons. One, the primary digester was heating and mixing and it was much more effective in terms of digestion. As John said, this one's just a holding tank. So getting rid of the holding tank's not nearly as big of a deal as getting rid of the digestion. The second piece is the winter, as we discussed, the reason for why we're not doing the odor monitoring dampens a lot of the odors. So if bringing the secondary digester down for cleaning and inspection would create odors, it would create less in the winter than it would in the summer.
I think the point's an excellent one. And the new administration, I believe, will want to be at least in the loop. There'll be a new head of DPW, I would imagine, and hopefully there's more information exchange and cooperation between the two bodies.
And I think just generally, guys, or just my point is, it's a sewer treatment facility. It's gonna smell. If you're around a sewer treatment facility, there's just general smells, but I think we gotta just keep the neighbors informed, so it's more on top of it. But what do you, and I'll go on record on this, what do you expect when you're living by a sewer treatment facility?
And a dump.
And a dump, and a composting, and everything else.
September, yeah.
Yeah, it's just where everything.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're right.
So.
I thought it's nothing.
It is what it is. These are jobs we gotta do just for the maintenance of the facility.
And I think we made mention at previous meetings, especially in the summer, when we said we had money put aside to do the secondary, that when that time comes, there's going to be odors. Maybe it's not gonna be as bad as last time, but there's gonna be odors associated with it. And it's just the way it is when you're doing maintenance on such equipment.
Okay, so if I had to pick a date, potentially the odors will start sometime in
St. Patrick's Day.
March.
Or interest rates drop.
Sometime right before interest rates. Sometime in March,
Still in a bad mood.
evaluate, clean out, will be happening.
Yep.
And we're hoping to get it back online and June.
Yes.
So between March and June, there's a potential, because we want to clean out the digester, evaluate what's going on inside with the floating cover. Okay, March, okay, we can do this.
See you at the meeting tomorrow.
Like I said, Dennis was here today, and we're going to attack this and have ourselves ready, so we're not going into the prime beach season.
Any soup?
Stress that this isn't as big of a deal as the primary.
Yes, because the
digester.
primary
That's-
digester is the,
Because
Right.
don't,
This is the story.
I think when you tell people that we're taking a digester down for 3 months, they are immediately gonna go.
I am not going to
"Oh,
use,
shit,
I am
that
not
is
going
for
to use
3
the word digester.
Okay.
I'm going to use the word storage tank.
And this is preventative maintenance component
Yeah.
too, not emergency.
They're familiar with the term.
So it's very,
Yes, no, we don't want to, it's not a digester.
Sludge holding.
We're not using microbes to decompose. This is just
Could
after the
probably
digester.
be
After
as
it's
bad as last time.
Now, as you bypass the secondary storage tank,
Yes.
is that going to be a problem? How are you going to get from A to B?
That's to be determined. That's
External? You're going to put it in a truck and drive it over? Do we have any pipes that go that way underground?
my initial thought, and this is just me thinking, because as you're putting it to the primary, it's pushing out into the holding tank. We can't do that.
Right.
My initial thought is to break that connection for the transfer and run a hose down to And I don't know if Baker tanks, maybe 1, 2, 3 Baker tanks, just holding tanks, they're sealed. We can pull out of them, press it, compost it. Nothing goes to the atmosphere, but that's just an initial, I have no idea. I don't know if that'll work, but.
So the answer is, we're working on a plan.
Correct.
And the plan is to minimize having anything exposed to the outside air.
Exactly.
Any sewer bypasses?
No, sir.
There a motion to adjourn? From Tom, second by Chris. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.